Hey everyone, welcome to the road to Avengers Doomsday. I'm Jonathan, and every single month I'm going back through the MCU, revisiting each movie and showing you how to make custom LEGO minifigures from every single Marvel film leading up to the culmination in Avengers Doomsday. We've made it a long way so far, so be sure to hit like and subscribe, and let's get into today's movie starting now. Well, folks, we are in the Endgame now. That's right. In our road to Avengers Doomsday, we've finally made it to Avengers Endgame. Now, the first time I made customs from this movie was back in 2019. It is currently the most viewed video on my channel. Just under 1 million views, actually, which is pretty awesome. And today, we're going back to revisit all of those characters 5 years later to make even better customs with all of the new parts and pieces LEGO has made since that original video. We have over 100 custom minifigures in this video, so be sure to hit like and subscribe down below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get into Avengers Endgame. Alright, so we're going to try to go in order as much as possible, which means we start off with Clint Barton and his family. So for Clint, I used the torso from Ross from the LEGO Friends apartment, with the head from Hawkeye from the Marvel CMF Series 2, spiky hair and a bow and arrow, and as you can see over to the right here, the little speck of dust I just moved off screen is a perfect representation of Clint's family from the beginning of the movie. Alright, next we head off into space where Tony and Nebula are just trying to survive on their way back from Titan. And of course, to build Tony, I used the torso from the Iron Man 3 version of Tony Stark for that arc reactor there, with black legs, bare arms, black hair, and the kind of rare head that comes on the Silver Centurion Iron Man from the Polybag many years ago. For Nebula, I actually used the torso and legs from Star-Lord from 2014, with the head from Nebula from the modern days that of course has that orange strip by her eye. Then of course I gave her a blue hand and robotic arm to finish the look. Captain Marvel comes to rescue them, of course, and for this version, I actually used the dual-molded printed legs from Spider-Man from Homecoming as well as Far From Home, with the torso from Captain Marvel with gold arms, red hands, the normal Captain Marvel head, and this long hair here that came on Elizabeth Swann, although it's come in other places, but I think that captures Brie Larson's look from the beginning phase of the movie pretty well. Okay, up next we have the Avengers that attack Thanos at the Garden. Now, of course, this would include Captain Marvel, but we just went over how to build her. To build these Avengers, it doesn't take too terribly much, because Black Widow, as you can see, is the exact Black Widow from Avengers Infinity War. We do have those upgraded legs from the 2020 version of Black Widow, as well as some other places, so there's that. And then, of course, Rocket Raccoon is just the regular Rocket from Guardians Volume 2, as well as Endgame. Or excuse me, Infinity War. Now that being said, I do kind of like the brown Rocket better for this movie, but this is the perfect torso to use, and because the torso's base color is brown, it doesn't look good when you have like the brown head and arms on it, in my opinion, so we'll use the gray version of Rocket here. Also, the War Machine here is the one from the Infinity War Bricktober pack, which is really nice because you get those amazing printed arms on both sides, as well as a detailed helmet print, great torso and leg printing all around on this figure. For Bruce Banner, I used black legs with the torso from Eric Selvig, or also from Jerry Seinfeld, with the head from Bruce Banner from Infinity War, and I actually used Doctor Strange's hair to add just a little bit of gray to the sides, which I think is pretty accurate for his look here. For Thor, I went ahead and used the Infinity War torso with these dark gunmetal gray arms, the head from Infinity War Thor with the spiky hair. Then, of course, I used these legs from Tron Legacy to show that, you know, he's got the lightning power going. And then I used the more recent rubber cape here. I'm not a big fan of the rubber capes in general, but I do really like it on this specific version of Thor. Then, for Stormbreaker, I used the classic design I've been using all the way back since 2018 or so, with the handle here that's just a Lego pole, this kind of telescoping lightsaber handle at the top, this axe piece, a 1x1 stud, and a 1x1 flat piece on the end for the hammer side of Stormbreaker. Finally, that brings us to Captain America in his stealth suit, which of course uses this torso from Legends of Chima, which literally works perfect for the stealth suit as far as purist customs go, with these dark brown gloves, the blue legs, the head from San Flynn from Tron, ironically the same figure I pulled the legs for Thor from, with this regular hair, and of course a Captain America shield to finish the look. Alright, up next we have Thanos at the Garden, and for his look here, I went ahead and used an arm and head from Thanos from his various MCU-based minifigure forms over the last several years. The torso is actually flipped around from Jake Sully from the Avatar sets. I think that works really well for his torso here. For this arm, I used a dark gray arm to show that he was battle damaged. I tried black, and I didn't really like black, so I got kind of close, but not quite going all the way to black. You'll see that this Infinity Gauntlet does have the stones in it. I used paint pens to put that in. Of course, he doesn't have the stones by this point of the movie because I used the stones to destroy the stones. But I did think it looks good here, so we're going to leave it. Then he's got these dual molded legs with gray on top and black on bottom, which come from Batman, as well as some various other places, but I think that captures the look really well. Okay, up next is Ant-Man and the rat that saved the universe. So this rat comes from Harry Potter, but there are lots of Lego rats you could use. Just wanted to include it, technically to hit every character we could. Then, of course, we've got Ant-Man here, which uses the legs and torso from the Ant-Man and the Wasp version of Ant-Man. I think that is just the best we've gotten to date. Then these arms with the red detailing actually come from the Surfer from the CMF series many years ago. The helmet comes from the Endgame Quantum Suit version of Ant-Man, and if we lift that up, I have always used the Poe Dameron head underneath with this kind of hair to get the Paul Rudd look. Then when we flip that around, I think both sides of this head work really well for Paul Rudd, and you gotta love Ant-Man. He's probably my favorite main MCU hero if we're not counting Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, so I really dig this and am glad to have him in the lineup. Okay, then we find out that Cassie Lang survived, and we meet the teenage Cassie Lang. I just used a purple flipped around torso with matching arms and tan hands here with light blue legs, the head from Hermione from Harry Potter, I believe specifically from LEGO Dimensions, and some long brown hair to finish the look. Okay, so then we have Black Widow on the hologram call with several of the other heroes, and while we didn't get holograms for every character, we did get them for both Rocket and Captain Marvel in the Endgame Final Battle set from 2021, so I recommend using these pillar pieces that have the stickers on them, and of course, I'll show you how to make the characters a little bit later, but for right now, for this hologram portion of the movie, these stand in pretty well. Alright, up next we have Tony and Morgan from when they're living in the cabin, and of course I really like the way that these turned out. For Morgan, I used these short light blue legs with the torso from Maisie from Jurassic World. The head comes from, actually it's been in several different places, but they come from Lex in Jurassic Park, and then this brown hair finishes the look. Speaking of brown hair, we used this pretty common brown hair for Tony with the head from Tony from Iron Man 3, although it doesn't really matter which one you use, they all look pretty good. Then this torso, I believe, comes from Harry Potter, as well as these black legs to finish the outfits here. Alright, up next we have Smart Hulk, and when I did this showcase 5 years ago, we didn't have that many Hulk minifigure scale figures to work with, and since then we actually got this one that has the smirk, which works really well to show Hulk, like, not completely angry, like with his teeth gritted or his mouth open, so this one works really well for a nice smirk. Sadly, he doesn't have the glasses that Banner wears, but that always kind of made me laugh because, like, Hulk is, you know, the apex human. Why would he need glasses? Like, wouldn't that heal his eyes? Anyways, I don't know. It's just a movie, Jonathan. Calm down. Anyways, to build this, using that same torso we saw from Tony just a second ago from the Harry Potter series, with, ironically, black legs with 1x1 studs on the bottom to make him taller than any figure that he's standing next to. Then the hands and head from Hulk. Of course, we were just explaining that from one of the minifigure Hulks from the sets more recently, like the Hulk mech, as well as that 4+ set with the Iron Man motorcycle. And as I was spinning him around, you could see that I used that hair from Doctor Strange with the gray on the sides to add just a little extra detail. Alright, here we have Scott Lang in the time travel suit. The legs and torso come from power miners, with dark red arms, dark gray hands, that same Poe Dameron head for Paul Rudd underneath, and then I think that this is from like a diver or an astronaut from Lego City. It shouldn't be too difficult of a piece to track down. The one thing is, it does make him look bald underneath, which is kind of weird, but it does really captivate the look, and I'm pretty sure I didn't do this one in my original showcase 5 years ago, so we've got upgrades all around. Alright, soon we find ourselves putting the Avengers back together, which means we've got to put Fat Thor as well as Korg and Meek from their hangout days in New Asgard. For Thor, I used the exact Thor figure from Bro Thor's New Asgard. In fact, that's where all of these figures come from, with no changes made to any of them. So that's definitely essential Endgame set if you want to have every single character. And I think that the prints on all of these look really good and work really well, so no additional changes will be made. Alright, up next we have Hawkeye as Ronin. This is still one of my favorite customs I've ever made at any point of my channel, and I keep it assembled all the time because I just love the way it looks in my minifigure lineup. For this figure, I used a hood here, a black hood. Underneath, the head comes from one of the foot soldier characters from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with a torso from the Outriders from Lego Marvel. Those are pretty easy to get. Black arms, black hands, and these hips and legs from Cole from Lego Ninjago. Then you can lift that off, and for the look underneath, I used the Age of Ultron era head for Clint, as well as some spiky hair that I took some sandpaper to the sides to make his hair look a little bit more like a mohawk. Does this break the purist method? Yes, absolutely, but I do definitely recommend it, especially if you have extra spiky hair. If not, you could just use regular spiky hair, but to give him the mohawk he so iconically rocks in this movie, that's what I would recommend. Alright, up next we have the Avengers in their quantum suits. Now, in order to make everything you see here, you do need quite a few quantum suit minifigures. Luckily, if you collected all the sets back in the day, you should have more than enough to build everybody you see here. So that's what we're using for the torso and legs pretty much across the board. Of course, Rocket has the short legs, and I upgraded him with the brown tail and head from the more modern sets, but all of them, I left Nebula's helmet off just so you could see what a figure looks like without the helmet on, but all of them use this white space helmet with the blue visor that came from Lego City, so you'll have to track those down, probably on Bricklink or eBay or something like that. Then, of course, we have Hulk in the back, who came in the Hulk's Helicarrier drop from 2020. Definitely not an accurate set, because it's depicting something that didn't even appear in the movie, but it is essential to get that Hulk in his quantum suit, although it isn't really all that accurate to the movie, and you can't put a helmet on him, so, you know, we gotta have Hulk here. If you didn't want to use the big figure, you could get one quantum suit and use, like, the minifigure scale idea that we used before for, like, Smart Hulk, you know? Like, alright, up next we have the Ancient One and the Hulk from the scene on top of the Sanctum. You technically could add in, like, a Ghost Bruce Banner, but I would just use the figure from earlier or the Infinity War version. Regardless, what we've got here is the actual Ancient One minifigure from the original Doctor Strange movie set back in the day, and the Hulk is actually the one from Endgame back in 2019 with the leg printing and those dark blue legs. No actual custom upgrades made here, just some good old-fashioned great Lego Marvel minifigs. Alright, ironically, we were just talking about the Hulk, and now we're going to talk about him again as a part of the circle shot. That's right, we get to relive that excitement in this movie, and of course we do see some Chitauri in there, so I recommend using the most recent version of the Chitauri, considering those are technically the most screen accurate we've gotten to date. Since I like talking about the Hulk so much today, I'll go ahead and show you this is the Hulk from the modern sets, of course, from Avengers Tower and things of that sort. Definitely a great looking figure, and we did get a Hulk that has more of like an angry face in the Leviathan set, which you could also use. Doesn't really matter which one. Anyways, for posterity, I used the original Iron Man from all the way back in 2012. Yes, there is a modern version that you could use as well. Show you that right here, but I thought that since we're dealing with time travel and this figure technically has aged the best of any of them, might as well use him as the best one here. Plus, I just love that old Iron Man helmet style so much. For Steve Rogers, of course, I used the most recent version of the 2012 suit with those dual molded legs to give him the red boots. Black Widow is the same as the sets with the leg printing and arm printing and all that, but I used that red hairpiece from the character Brick from Incredibles 2. Thor is the same as the sets as well, getting those gray arms on there, and he's got dual molded legs with blue on top, black on bottom. These did come in a regular set, but I used the eraser method on these, so that's where you use an eraser to take printing off of them. And then, of course, we've got Hawkeye from Avengers Tower to round out the 2012 roster. All right, here we've got Rocket and Thor from their time travel mission back to Asgard. Rocket, I went ahead and used the Endgame version of Rocket. Of course, there is a rocket head that has the goggles printed on top, but you could use a version without if you want to show him with or without the goggles. Doesn't really matter, but this is going to be our Rocket to cover the rest of the video, so figured I'd show you the set version here. For Thor, I went ahead and used this torso from Harry Potter with blue arms to match to make the torso look more like a vest than a shirt. Then I used dark gray legs and the head and hair combo from Thor from the more recent iterations from the MCU, as well as like from Bro Thor earlier, because that's pretty accurate to what we see in this scene. Okay, up next we have Frigga, and believe it or not, I actually haven't made any updates to this figure over the last 5 years. I think that the original design still holds up pretty well, and I'm not really sure what more I would do to it all these years later. So, for a refresher, the hair and head come from Princess Leia from the Star Wars sequel trilogy, with gold arms, tan hands, and the torso and legs from Professor Seibel from Harry Potter. Okay, up next we have Loki in 2012. Now, we technically also have Loki during the Asgard flashback scene, but his outfit is pretty dang similar to what we see here, so I'm just going to round them all into the same figure. Of course, this is the version of Loki from the Avengers Quinjet, as well as the Avengers Tower, which gives us that great suit from 2012 with the green cape, and of course, most importantly here, the version of the head with the muzzle on it, which is such a cool detail. Of course, we're going to use the hair instead of the helmet, because by the time we see him in this movie, he doesn't have the helmet on anymore. And going back and rewatching this movie, it is so crazy to think that this is the Loki that we followed throughout Loki season 1 and 2, who is now overviewing and guarding the entire multiverse. Gosh, that show was amazing, and so was this movie. Okay, up next we have Agent Sitwell and Brock Rumlow from the scene where they're taking Loki's scepter. For Agent Sitwell, I used the torso from Phil Coulson from the LEGO Marvel sets back in 2017, with the head and hands from Franklin from LEGO Jurassic World. And for Brock Rumlow, I used black legs with the torso, including the dual-molded arms with black sleeves, from Ethan Hunt from LEGO Dimensions Mission Impossible, with black hands, the head from Jango Fett, and spiky black hair, plus my custom version of Loki's scepter, which uses the old scepter piece, but I actually shaved off the end to make it a little bit more in scale with the figures, and I cut off one of the arms up top to make it look more like the movie, plus I added that blue dot in the center to represent the Mind Stone. Alright, down on the ground we have Alexander Pierce and S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Tony Stark. So to make these, I actually just used the official figures from the Avengers Tower. Sure, you could add maybe dual-molded legs to Tony or something like that, but overall, I think that both of these straight out of the Avengers Tower set look pretty darn good. Alright, up next we have Gamora and Nebula from 2014, both of which are some pretty customized figures, if I do say so myself. For Gamora, I used the hair and head from the CMF series Gamora, although just about any version of Gamora's head and hair will work because they all kind of look the same within some standard deviation. The torso moving down comes from Agent 13 from Captain America Civil War, with light green arms, which have come in a lot of places, like Gunther from the Friends Central Park set, but I pulled these off of She-Hulk from the original version of that character. Then she's got black hands and these kind of utility belt legs, if you will, that came on Black Widow and some other characters a couple years back. For Nebula, I used the more recent version of Nebula's head because that gives you the dark blue in the center with the light blue on the sides, which is technically the most accurate version of Nebula we've gotten over the years, because the original version actually has those colors inversed. Technically, the middle of her head is purplish, or like a indigo color, but this is the closest we've gotten, like I said. The torso comes from the 2014 version of Nebula from all those years ago, and the legs come from Catwoman from the LEGO Batman movie. Alright, so the version of Thanos we see in 2014 ends up being the one from the final battle of the movie, which is why I've also included his butter knife of doom sword here, but this is actually just the figure that came in the Sanctuary 2 set with Captain Marvel from the final battle, which we'll be revisiting here very shortly. But yeah, no upgrades to be made here because LEGO absolutely crushed it when it came to this figure. Okay, we briefly see Peter Quill dancing from the scene where he's going to get the orb in 2014, and yes, the more modern Chris Pratt head is more accurate, but since we're playing around with wibbly-wobbly time travel here, I thought it would be fun to use the original head, but of course, if you want to use the more accurate Chris Pratt head, you could, but the torso and legs come from the trenchcoat version of Star-Lord from all the way back in 2014. So we already took a look at how to make Hawkeye in his Endgame Ronin outfit, but now it's time to make Red Skull the Soul Stone Protector and Black Widow. So for these figures, I used this black hood with this ripped up cape from the Harry Potter Dementors. Actually, that's where this ghostly leg piece comes from Red Skull as well. I used Red Skull's head underneath with the torso from Darth Maul from Star Wars. And for Black Widow, I used the original Age of Ultron torso and legs for Black Widow with these arms from Tron. The hands actually are not purist. I believe I got those from Eclipse Graphics years ago. Of course, just used black hands. I just left those on all those years ago and never removed them, so there's that. I believe this head was used on... Who was this head used on all those years ago? I've left it on Black Widow so long that I actually equate it more with her. It may have been used on a version of Captain Marvel. I actually don't remember, but guess what? I'm sure there's somebody in the comments that does remember, so now's your time to shine. Drop a comment and let me know. And the hair comes from Mia from LEGO Friends. A lot of people don't realize you can use mini dolls' hair on minifigures, and in this case, it is definitely the best option. In every video that I'm making on the MCU leading up to Avengers Doomsday, I'm actually making the Stan Lee cameo from each movie. Now, this figure always, or almost always, breaks the purist method because I'm using the head, torso, and legs from the Firestar Toys custom Stan Lee. They just did such a great job that I really recommend it. Then the hair here comes from Han Solo to show that he's got that freestyle hippie hair from the 70s. So yeah, gotta love that. I loved the time travel scene back to the 70s where Tony and Steve go undercover. So for this, I actually used the torso and legs from Professor X from the X-Men mansion, but the torso was also used on Creed and Michael Scott from the Office set. Maybe it's appeared other places, but I definitely know those three. The brown hair is the same we've been using for Tony, as well as any Tony Stark head will do just fine here. For Steve, I used this ball cap that is kind of tan. If you have it in dark green, that could work too, but I don't actually think I have it in dark green if it even exists. The head is from Agent Coulson with those big sunglasses we see him wear in the film. Then LEGO has not given us very many militaristic torsos, so this one from the toy soldiers from Toy Story from years and years ago is my recommendation, with this cool little custom Pym particle vial. Of course, you can see it's made up of just a simple stud there with that reflective print on top, with a 1x1 canister in translucent red with a 1x1 stud on the bottom and dark green legs. We do see a young Hank Pym back then too, and for those that don't know, Hank Pym is one of my absolute favorite comic book characters. I think he's just such a tragic character in so many ways, and I think he's been underutilized in the MCU in some ways, but Michael Douglas is also one of my favorite actors, so I really, really love that, you know, I've got a mixed bag of awesomeness when it comes to Hank Pym in the MCU. Favorite actor, but I wish they used him more. Anyways, to build the custom figure here, I just used a black suit here with a tie. Could use whatever you want for that. I actually think his suit jacket is open, so you could use that same torso from Agent Sitwell that came from Agent Coulson earlier that would work just fine. Then, of course, I used the head from Han Solo with the Han Solo hair, so I guess both come from Han Solo, and I actually custom made the Ant-Man helmet here. It's a classic LEGO helmet with the eyepiece and goggles there that I painted silver, but not before super gluing these pieces here. Those antennae are actually the pieces from like the LEGO switchgear piece, like a throttle or whatever from all those various sets over the years. So I think that that works out really well and looks pretty cool. But yeah, that's what I used here. Also, if you want to check out on my channel, years ago after Endgame came out, I actually interviewed a guy named John Michael Morris, who's a friend of mine, that was the body double for Michael Douglas in Endgame. So if you want to hear a little bit about how that scene was shot and the movie was made, go check out that interview on the channel. And finally, we've got Jarvis and Howard Stark from the 70s, both of which I think turned out really well. Now, for Howard Stark, I wish I had the Walt Disney minifigure because that's what I would have just used, but since I don't have that, and maybe you don't either, I used this torso from The Office. The torso is from Stanley, the head is from one of the firefighter characters, or security guard characters, from the Lego Batman movie, with some slicked back brown hair, and for Jarvis, I just used that standard Star Wars trooper head with some flat top brown hair, and the torso from Kevin from The Office, and I just kept the legs the same because, well, it's easy. Alright folks, we're coming down the home stretch now. Here we've got Hulk in his final battle Endgame suit, which of course gives him the Nano Gauntlet. Believe it or not, we actually got this Nano Gauntlet piece in the Endgame Final Battle set from 2021, and to show Hulk's arm with the damage, I used that Surfer Dude arm again to show that his arm got burnt, and then the black and red marks on there work really well. The torso is actually from the Hydra Agent from Age of Ultron 2015, then the Hulk hand, head, and legs come from one of the more recent minifig versions of Hulk. Then, of course, I gave him that Doctor Strange hair again for some gray added to the sides. Up next is Captain America from Endgame in his final battle. Well, of course he's from Endgame, everybody in this video is, but the torso and the head and helmet combo all come from Captain America from that Endgame final battle set. If you can't tell, that's kind of a necessary one to get so many different figures from the movie, but of course he has dual molded legs with dark brown on bottom, blue on top, which once again come from the, from Newt Scamander, actually, using the eraser method to take the printing off of there. I think those were also available in a Build-A-Minifigure station at one point, but I actually don't remember. But mine came from Newt Scamander with the eraser method. Here we've got Iron Man, you guessed it, from the Endgame final battle. This gives him the wings on the back as well as the awesome shield. Both some cool things that you could add to upgrade the figure if you so choose, but it is that Endgame Iron Man style. We also got an Iron Man from the, newer style that has the helmet that's a little bit more flat. I'm not a big fan of those helmets, so if I can ever avoid using them, I do, because I think that the old helmet style was perfect and didn't really need changed. So, that being said, there are options out there, but this, in my opinion, is the best one. Here we've got Viking Thor from the end of the film, and this of course uses that Endgame Thor torso that's come in several different places, as well as the Lightning Eyes Thor with the Qui-Gon Jinn style hair in the Thor blonde color. Then of course I added these legs from the Imperial Engineer just to add some extra detail. We used that same Stormbreaker build from before, and there's a double-sided cape with red on one side and black on the other that came on Jafar from the LEGO Disney CMF Series 2, which I would really recommend using here. We see tons and tons of Outriders in this final battle, and thankfully, well, at least in this one case, thankfully, LEGO gave us tons and tons of Outriders across sets over the years. So try to get as many of these as you can to army build for your final battle. Now, just like Hulk, we have the Big Fig version of Thanos too, and it all depends on the scenario for me. Like, sometimes if I'm creating a scene, the Big Fig makes more sense, sometimes the Minifig makes more sense, but the best part is we have an option at all. This version of Thanos came in the Avengers Endgame final battle. I do really like putting the armor on his arms there. I think it looks really good. And then, of course, this is one of the ones that has a posable head, and you need the Infinity Gauntlet with all of the stones for the final battle. And I just think that this looks really great. Like I said, sometimes I like the minifig more, sometimes I like the big fig more, but the ultimate goal is to have both so that you can do whatever you need for your setups. Alright, here we've got the Children of Thanos, the majority of which came in the Infinity War sets in 2018, with the exception of this Ebony Maw, which I think I finally decided I like this one more. This one does come in the Sanctum Sanctorum modular set, but Proxima Midnight I actually didn't make any upgrades to, but she came in the 2018 sets for Infinity War. Corvus Glaive here is a really nice figure. The only update I made was switching out the legs for the Dark Shadow Troopers from the Star Wars Extended Universe. Then we've got Cull Obsidian, who's a big fig that came in the original Infinity War Sanctum Sanctorum, and since he's a big fig, unfortunately there aren't really any changes that can be made. Okay, so this is Battle Damaged Captain America, basically also from Endgame, but also kind of his own thing from the figure we looked at before. Of course, I gave him Mjolnir, and I actually took a pair of wire cutters to damage up a shield to show how it broke. This isn't exactly the way the shield broke in the movie, but, you know, it gets it across, and heck, I've even broken a handful of these over the years to look at different shapes and different damages. So, you know, obviously don't do this unless you have several extra shields to work with. But regardless, for the pieces here, I actually gave him red boots this time. The reason being is if we use the legs and even the torso and helmet from Zombie Captain America, we get a lot of really nice damaged, battle-ravaged parts. Also, the arm here looks pretty good for that. So we can get the most battle damaged pieces if we're okay with switching the boots to red, which of course on this side we've just got a regular leg, since on the real figure it's a zombie leg. So basically that's where all the parts come from. Of course he's got the Captain Carter arm on that side to add just a little extra detail, which I don't think I did on the other figure. So lots of options here with Captain America to make some really cool figures all around. All right, now we're getting into the crazy stuff of all the returning Avengers. For Falcon, who we hear from first at least, I used the hair, head, and buildable wings from the Avengers Tower version of Falcon. I just think that these are the best wings to represent what he looks like in this film. Then the torso actually comes from the Infinity War version from 2018, with the dual molded arms from Barbara Gordon from the Lego Batman movie, black hands for his gloves, and these printed legs from the Spy from the CMF series several years back. Okay, so we've got lots of warriors from Wakanda that join the final battle. So to build these, of course, we've got Shuri here, and I just used the actual Shuri figure from the sets. It's basically perfect and has tons of detail on the face and torso, so why change anything up? For Black Panther, I used the Infinity War version, since that's the same suit he wears in the final battle. We also could add the Chadwick Boseman style head from the Star-Lord T'Challa figure from the CMF if you wanted, but I did add these legs with the silver print on the sides from General Zod from Man of Steel. Moving over to Okoye, I went ahead and used the Infinity Saga version from the 2023 Hulkbuster. That gets you the really detailed head, the shoulder piece, as well as the torso, and I believe these legs came from 2013 Castle, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know if I messed that up. Then for M'Baku, I went ahead and used the hair, head, and torso from M'Baku from the War on the Water set from Wakanda Forever. He's also got this really cool piece around the neck here that kind of like has the collar going on. It's come in several different places. He's got a short cape here. I believe that came from Boba Fett, if I'm not mistaken. And he's got these legs from Tasu Leech from Star Wars The Force Awakens, which work really well to pull the entire look together. Alright, so as our heroes return, I thought it'd be cool to pair up Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, since they'll be teaming up in the MCU not too long after Endgame. Once again, the Iron Spider figure here is actually just the regular figure that came out from Infinity War back in 2018. I think it's pretty close to perfect. The only thing I would change are adding dual molded legs. I actually used a different head on this figure years ago. I actually used the 2019 era Spider-Man that had like the blue around the eyes. I guess as I have matured in my Lego custom building, I just am totally fine with the original eyes, but you could change them. And of course I did all those years ago. For Doctor Strange, I actually used the No Way Home version of the figure. I do like the rubber cape they introduced for him here. The gray on the sides of the hair is really nice. The torso and legs work great. And the only thing I added are these arms from the Sailor from the collectible minifigure series. So that's a nice upgrade there. Alright, so as the Guardians are returning, we have a lot to discuss here. Now, the Drax I used is the Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He's actually quite rare, considering he only came in one set in 2017, but we have gotten Drax in the new Guardians Milano set, which is basically a very similar torso and head design, although it's just a little bit more of a happy smirk, but then you lose out on these detailed Guardians Volume 2 legs. Really, though, you could just go ahead and use any detailed blue legs to try and get you Drax as close as possible without hunting down this rare figure from all those years ago. For Mantis, I used the Mantis torso, head, and hair combo with these arms from Poison Ivy from the Lego Batman movie. You do have to use the eraser method to take off some of the detail there, but putting black hands on there really helps add too. Then, of course, we also have Poison Ivy's skirt, which I've kind of folded in a way that leaves the front of the legs able to be seen, because those detailed legs come from Lloyd from the Lego Ninjago movie. Finally, for Star-Lord, we used the modern Chris Pratt hair with modern Chris Pratt head with regular hair, the Guardians 2/Infinity War version of the torso for Star-Lord, and the Star-Lord T'Challa legs, which give you this really nice print with like the jet boosters on the boots and all that. Then of course he's got his iconic blasters, and we also have arm printing on here that comes from the Rocket Raccoon polybag from all the way back in 2014. The only reason I didn't include Groot in the last slide is because, well, we actually technically got 2 Groot minifigs from Infinity War, so I wanted to show off both because, well, they translate pretty well to Endgame. So, interestingly, the one on the left came in Thor's Weapon Quest, which was a pretty cool little set for like 20 bucks. That being said, a lot of nice detail there, great figure, no complaints. Then we also got this version of Groot, which if you look at the top was actually a keychain, which I removed the keychain part out of. You can see that the torso print is exactly the same, but it's much more detailed on the keychain. I don't really know why that is. I guess they just maybe have access to better printing capabilities when they're doing keychains. Regardless, it is cool that we have 2 different versions of Groot from the movie. If you're willing to bust a keychain apart like I did, you could check out that video on the channel if you'd like to see the tutorial, but I would recommend doing that if you'd like the alternate version of Groot to have in your final battle. Okay, so here we have the Winter Soldier as well as Scarlet Witch from the final battle. I suppose if you really wanted to, you could use one of the other Wanda heads, like from the CMF series that have eyebrow colors that match the hair, but honestly, this one doesn't really bother me. This came from the Endgame final battle, as well as the one with all the girls, with the letter A versus Thanos, so that works well. Actually, the one with all the girls teaming up is how you would get this skirt piece, so I guess more specifically, you do want to use that version. I also added those legs from the Star Wars Imperial Engineer to add some more detail, and the Winter Soldier actually has no upgrades made because this is the super detailed figure that came in the Infinity War Bricktober back in 2018, and I mean, look at that great arm print, the leg print with the side, dual molded legs. I mean, it's just so incredible. Why change perfection? Howard the Duck appears in the final battle. He's kind of a blink and you miss it moment, and we also get Wong. This Wong minifig has no upgrades made because he came from that same Infinity War Bricktober pack we were just talking about and looks absolutely phenomenal. Howard the Duck, on the other hand, has not been made in official LEGO form yet, so how I built him is using the legs and head from one of Donald's nephews from the Disney CMF Series 2 with these arms from, I believe, Captain Hook from the Disney CMF Series 1 with white hands. Oh yeah, we got the ducktail from one of the nephews as well, and this torso from the clown from the LEGO CMF. Alright, eventually these pairings wouldn't make sense, and we've got to one here with Valkyrie and Kraglin. Now, Kraglin does show up very briefly in the final battle, so I gave him Yondu's fin, up top, of course. Then I actually gave him Star-Lord's head from back in 2014, and Guardians 2 for that matter. If it works, right? Speaking of Star-Lord, I used the modern Star-Lord torso and legs from the Milano set to figure this figure out. I'm running out of ways to describe these figures differently after we've done so many here. It's pretty crazy. Finally, we've got Valkyrie here, and this is the Valkyrie from the final battle set that we were just talking about a minute ago. Hey man, I'm cool. This is my very good friend Meek. Here we've got Korg and Meek from the final battle. Now, a lot of people don't know that we actually did get a Korg from Endgame. There was an accessory pack released at the LEGO store maybe 2 years ago now that came with this Korg in his warrior outfit as well as a brick-built Meek mech here. Yeah, it's pretty amazing and basically looks perfect from the movie, so we're going to use both of those for their placement here. Alright, up next we've got the Wasp, one of my favorite comic book heroes of all time, and I like her quite a bit in the MCU just as well. This is basically all the parts from the Wasp from the Avengers Tower, which is such a great set and such a great minifigure. The only addition here is using these legs from Aisha from Guardians Volume 2, and the handcuff trick to give her her gauntlets. The handcuff trick is basically where you take a pair of LEGO handcuffs and you chop out the chain in between them, then put the cuffs back on the figure to give them enhanced gauntlets. Sometimes it makes a figure's armor look better, and in this case, it just makes Wasp look that much more awesome. So one of the best parts of that final battle is Giant Man. That's right. LEGO actually made a version of Giant Man that's a scaled-up minifigure. Oops. This is how I attach him to my wall, so that wasn't supposed to be there, but you guys get the raw, unedited Mini Superheroes today. Today. How about that? All right. Well, anyways, Giant Man is in the final battle, and we got this awesome brick-built one back in 2016 for Captain America Civil War. As you can see, the shoulders are posable, the hands are posable, the legs are posable, and the head is posable. Yes, we've gotten other Ant-Man figures that are giant buildable figures, but none of them have been built like a scaled-up minifigure like this one is, so I'm obviously going to love this one the most and suggest using it for your Endgame final battle. Here we've got the Iron Patriot. Now, Iron Patriot was, of course, first shown in Iron Man 3. That's basically the primary War Machine armor of that movie. But in Endgame, he's much more bulky. So to do that, I used this shoulder piece here from the Galactic Marine from the Lego collectible minifigure series with a red flat piece on the front for the arc reactor. Then the helmet, head underneath, torso, and legs are from that very rare Iron Patriot figure from years ago. And I added one of the cannons on the back, actually from the original Iron Patriot, to make him more movie accurate. Here we've got Pepper Potts in the rescue armor, which is such a cool figure. She only came in one set back in 2020, which a lot of people missed out on because admittedly it wasn't a very good set, but she did have a very cool brick-built backpack in the back with those thrusters added on, and because the figure was so detailed, the only thing I added here are these printed arms from Catwoman from the Lego Batman movie. Alright, Captain Marvel swoops in to save the day at the end of the movie, and to build her, I used the head, hair, and torso from Captain Marvel from the Sanctuary 2 Infinity Saga set, and then I used the blue hips and these dual-molded legs with blue boots and red pants from the Wildlife Photographer from the Lego CMF series. I think that all of that together makes for a really great figure, and I love the way that this one looks. Sadly, Tony Stark dies at the end of the movie, and that takes us to the funeral scene. Now, we get just about every hero in the MCU in a dark or black suit to honor Tony, and I didn't build every single one, because a lot of them we've already built here, but I did build some of the characters that only appear at the funeral scene. So, of course, that gives us Janet and Hank Pym, Nick Fury, and Harley Keener, the grown-up kid from Iron Man 3. For Janet, I used this long gray hair, which I believe came on Mrs. Scratch and Post, if I'm not mistaken. The head comes from Ellie Sattler from Jurassic World, with the torso and legs from the Lego Women of NASA set with these bare arms to make it look more like her dress. For Hank Pym, I used this torso, which came on Maxwell Lord, as well as Bruce Wayne from DC. Then I used Dumbledore's head with the hair from Commissioner Gordon from DC. For Nick Fury, I used the standard Nick Fury head, black legs, and one of the torsos from the Cantina Band minifigures from Star Wars. And for Harley Keener, I used this head from Marty McFly, ironically the hair from Marty too. You could really do anything with the hair, doesn't really super matter. Then the torso from Bruce Banner from Ragnarok and Infinity War, and black legs. So, here we've got Tony Stark from his epic death scene. Still gets me every time. When I rewatch the movie now, it's like, no. I always hope the ending's gonna be different, but it's always the same. Anyways, to build Tony, I used that head with the black and blue eye from the Iron Patriot, excuse me, the Silver Centurion figure I referenced at the very beginning of this video. I can't believe we're still here and you're still with me in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this long. The torso comes from an Iron Man that came with Avengers Tower, if you can believe it. It was not like the big Avengers Tower, it was a little gift with purchase they did back in 2018. So that's kind of cool to show like the nanotechnology kind of breaking down. Speaking of which, we've got the gold arm on our right side, his left arm. Then we've also got an Iron Man leg on his left leg, our right side. Then I filled it in with black hips, a black leg, then, of course, a black arm and a red hand to show where the Infinity Stones were, just to kind of show how using the Infinity Stones broke apart his suit and burned it like we see in the film. Here we've got Bucky from the final scene where Steve is going back in time. For this, I used the flipped around torso from Knight Rider, as well as it was used on one of the goons from Spider-Man Homecoming. Then, of course, we've got these dark blue legs. I gave him his robotic hand, and it's the same head and hair combo from the Infinity War Bricktober pack, which I'm just now realizing this hair actually comes from Sirius Black, not from the Infinity War Bricktober pack. Thank goodness I caught that change now. So, yeah. Alright guys, we're almost at the end. This gives us Old Man Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson. For Old Man Steve Rogers, I used these khaki legs with the torso from Aldrich Killian from Iron Man 3, 2013. Then the head and hair combo come from Han Solo from The Force Awakens, which is ironic considering he's played by Harrison Ford, who is now the president in the first movie where Sam is Captain America. Whoa, mind blown. All right. For Sam, I went ahead and used the head and hair from Sam from Infinity War. And then the torso comes from Indiana Jones with the shield from Sam from the CMF series and these blue legs to show his genes. And finally, we get Steve and Peggy with their happy ever after story. Just like Iron Man's death, this gets me every time too. I used one of the old classic blue suits for Steve with the head and hair combo that's been used for Cap. It's not the head and hair combo I've used earlier in this video, but the whole point is that I want to show you guys lots of different options you can use to make these characters, to think that there's not only one way to do it. Then of course for Peggy, we've got the torso and legs from Queenie from Harry Potter with the head and hair combo from Captain Carter from the Marvel CMF Series 1. And with that, we've made it to the end of Endgame. So let's round this video out and call it a day. Alright guys, thank you so much for hanging out until the end of this video. It was one of the longest videos I've put out all year, and just the longest videos on the channel, period. But I'm so grateful that we got to go on the journey together, and hey, the journey continues because next month we will pick up with Spider-Man Far From Home, making customs from that film and keeping the fun train rolling, making every single movie in LEGO customs leading up to Avengers Doomsday. I'll catch you guys on the next video, and until next time, build on.